Well, good morning and welcome to Prepping for Prosperity. How are you all today? It's good to have you. Good to see you. Am I crooked here? Am I a little bit too low? I'll set it down so I don't look like I'm sitting in a hole anyway. Okay. This is going to be the start of several that are going to be very important and actually very exciting. The first thing that I recommend to anyone, excuse me for holding my coffee cup here. I'm on my third cup of the day. I've been writing on the new book. One of the first things that I suggest to anyone who is really serious about building wealth, building their prosperity, is to have a business of their own. Now, having a business of your own comes in several phases. I've had a lot of businesses, and since I was in my 20s. And why I left some of them, why I sold some, why I closed some, I'm going to cover in the next few, and every one of them was profitable. Let me put it that way. So if they were, you'll ask, well, if they were profitable, then why did you close them or sell them or whatever like this? Those are really important questions, and I'll talk about those probably in the one after this and the one after that, because they come in the different phases of a business. The phases of a business, or of having a business, is to start one, to build one, and then to run one, or more than one. And I suggest having a variety, a diversified stream of income. So that could mean several different businesses, maybe some that have to do with each other, maybe nothing to do with each other at all. But starting a business it's one of the most confusing. Stick with me if you already have a business, because we will be talking about building and then running in the next ones. And maybe you'll see some things, if you already have a business, maybe you'll recognize some things that I'm going to say here today that you can include, that you can add to the discussion, so that people who are thinking about starting their own business can benefit from your knowledge and your experience. If you are just starting or wanting to start a business, I envy the excitement ahead of you. It really is one of the most exciting, as well as one of the most confusing and potentially sometimes frustrating things that you'll ever do in your life. But the excitement is important. Now, there are a few things to keep in mind. Let me back up for just a minute. Why do you want to start a business? Why do you want to have a business? There's an old saying that you'll never get rich working for someone else. That's exactly right. You may make good money. I know people that make hundreds of thousands. I know people who make millions of dollars working for someone else. Those people are in very special positions, okay? And most people are never going to get to those positions. They take education out the wazoo, not meaning that anybody here isn't smart enough to get that education, but most people, to be honest, most normal people aren't going to want to dedicate so many years of their life and so much money and so much time away from their families to get that kind of education, and then to dedicate themselves to serving a corporation to the extent that they pretty much sacrifice their families. That's no way to live, okay? So when we're talking about normal people, you're never going to get rich working for someone else. Whether you make $50,000 a year, $80,000 a year, $100,000 a year, you're just not going to get rich. The way to build wealth is with your own business. Now, why? Well, first off, you get to make all the choices. Okay? If you can make good choices, you're going to be successful. If you make bad choices, you're not. Don't worry, we'll talk about those a little bit in this one and in subsequent ones. But you get to decide how much money you put in it. You get to decide how much money you take out of it. You get to decide how hard you want to work, how many hours you want to put into it. You get to decide where you want it to go. Okay? And then, very importantly, while you build that business, you get to start taking more control over your taxes. Now, what do I mean by that? And I heard somebody, when I was in my 20s, I heard somebody say, you're never going to get wealthy until you get control over your taxes. I didn't even begin to understand that because I was in law enforcement at the time. I got a check every 2 weeks. They took out my taxes. I went to H&R Block. This was before they had these online tax places. They filled out the short form, and that was it. I said, how do you get control of your taxes? Well, when you itemize, and many of you do, if you have a mortgage, if you have children, if you have dependents, if you have all that, you get to itemize, and that's where you start controlling your taxes. But when you build a business, the IRS understands that it takes money to build a business, to start a business, okay? And they understand that the costs of doing business are tax deductible. Whatever you spend legitimately on your business, that doesn't mean funny business, but if you don't have a good accountant, or if you don't understand, and you can study the tax laws yourself. They're not all that complicated. People make it seem like they are. Look into it and see what can I legitimately deduct from my taxes. And so you're going to be able, at the end of the year, to deduct everything that you legitimately spent on the business. If you need a laptop for the business, you're going to be able to take that off. If you need a printer, okay, I'm a writer. All of my computers, my printers, all my paper, all my supplies, I get to deduct. All the travel that I do for, to research places, I get to deduct that. The different things that are legitimately applied to the building and the running of your business are tax deductible. So when people say, well, it costs money to make money, well, yeah, it does. It can cost a little bit, but not very much. You will have to put the things out there. It kind of depends on what kind of business. So when you think about your business, the thing that I encourage people, well, to me, it's a must. You have to do something that you either know about or can learn quickly about, okay? In a second, I'll use Kelly, my wife's experience in this. And then you have to do something that you are truly interested in. Because to try to get up and make a business work that you have no interest in, you're going to fail, okay? It's kind of like the old saying about writing. Write about what you know. There's a lot of people writing about what they don't know out there, and it shows. Well, there's a lot of people trying to put together businesses just to make money. And make no mistake, that is the reason to have a business. It's to make money. And money that you get from your business buys you freedom from working for others, right? And you should have this in the back of your mind that you want to build it to support yourself, your family, provide jobs for future generations, okay? It's just like my kids are coming in and working for one of the family businesses right now. And they make a lot better money than they can make working for other people because the business has been built. That's the Christmas light and outdoor lighting business. I'll talk about that more later. But the important thing is find something that you truly enjoy. Now, I think I mentioned on the previous one that I've heard people say when they had a hobby, for instance, and somebody will tell them, oh, you got to do this for a business. And they'll say, well, I don't want to do it for a business. Then I would just, make it work and I wouldn't enjoy it. Well, why not? That's a silly thing to say. Now, usually somebody that says something like that, it's an excuse, and excuses are your worst enemies. It's an excuse not to put themselves out there and try. Because when you put yourself out there and you put something together and then you give it to the world, you are inviting everyone in the world, especially those around you and your family and friends and things like that, to tear it apart, or kind of go, well, that's cute, that's good, let's go, whatever. If you have the backing of your family, you are way ahead. Don't expect the whole world, though, to say how wonderful it is. You have to prove it. And in order to do that, you have to put it out there and let the market judge. Okay? In the future, we'll be talking about pricing and things like that. Let me just give you an example of one of the things that Kelly did. Kelly got into making soap. She made beautiful soap. Just beautiful. I mean, I loved it. Our house smelled wonderful. Now, in order to do this, she learned about it. She didn't know anything about making soap. As a matter of fact, I'm the one who suggested it to her. Why don't you learn how to make soap? Excuse me while I take a sip. She kind of resisted it at first, but then got into it and really started to enjoy it. She spent all the time on her phone. Okay, so this is for people who says, I would have to spend all this time researching and it costs money to research. She spent the time on her phone over there learning and playing YouTube videos and getting in groups about soap making and just all. And pretty soon she knew all about it. And she was making some of the most beautiful soaps you've ever seen in your life. Okay. She decided to get in a couple of the crafts festivals around and did wonderfully. She sold a bunch of soap and made good money. She knew nothing about soap several months before she did it, but she did it and she started making great money. Now, is she still making soaps? Only on special occasions. Why is that, you ask? Let me tell you. Because she was at a crafts festival in Olathe, Kansas. As a matter of fact, there's one of our viewers, our subscribers, or on the Integrative Preparedness channel, a couple of them, two of them that we met over there. We met Mike and Jennifer and Sherry. And Sherry might leave a comment here. Well, Kelly was just doing wonderfully, selling the heck out of these soaps and making a good profit. But the booth next to her was doing something called sublimation printing on T-shirts. And when they got to talking about how much money there was being made among the booths, because these ladies, there were several booths there, they all got to be friends. And, just because you're involved in a business doesn't mean that everybody else is in the same business. They may be a competitor to an extent, doesn't make them an enemy. Make friends. So they got to discussing how much money they made. And Kelly in one of the booths, they said, well, we made a few, couple $3,000, and that's not bad for a weekend, right? Especially when a lot of it is you're having a good time talking to people. And then they asked the young lady next door that's selling the T-shirts, and I forget whether it was $17,000 or $20,000 she made. So guess what Kelly did? She doesn't make soaps anymore. She makes T-shirts, and she didn't know anything about it. The girl who talked to her in the next booth told her all about it, told her where to get stuff and everything. You'd be surprised how people will help you. And so she did. She got all the equipment, and we got it in the house. Heck, she set up a table in our family room in the kitchen and started messing around. And it was, there was a learning curve involved, but she did. Pretty soon she was putting out the coolest T-shirts and sweatshirts you've ever seen. And now she does shows on that and just does a bang-up job. Okay. The most difficult part of any job is starting it. The most difficult part of business is starting. Now, it doesn't mean that there aren't difficult parts coming down the road, but if you have to make yourself take that first step, and there's too many people who want to do something, who dream about doing something, who wish they could do something, but they're afraid to take the first step. It's one of those approach avoidance things. It sounds great in your head. You can imagine what you would do with the extra money. You can imagine building the business. You can imagine how much fun it would be to call your own hours, to have the family helping and all that kind of stuff. But when it comes to pulling the trigger, that's very difficult for some people. I've known people who had all their business together and still for months didn't get out there. I've known people who held back their business simply because they were trying to find the perfect name for it. There's an old saying that a good plan executed immediately and with energy beats a perfect plan later. You're going to be surprised. Names are important. We can talk about that. But don't let that hold you back. A lot of times it's a psychological trick that your mind is playing on you. It's actually yourself telling yourself, I'm not ready, I can't do it. I'm not ready, I can't do it. But the thing is, you'll never know until you do it. And you do it. When you do it, that's when your learning really begins. Okay? You will learn, and you will start. You'll have fun. You'll have doubts. You'll have all the things that goes in to starting and building a business, all of which is a wonderful experience. And then you'll hopefully start to grow. But I'm going to conclude this here because there's so much more. I want to keep it in, bite-sized chunks. But I suggest the most important thing to do is start your business. Oh, I should put in there Mike and Jennifer, who was one of our our subscribers that came by Kelly's booth in Olathe. They do the same thing, and they do some of the most beautiful embroidery work you've ever seen. I have a T-shirt that they made me. There's a kitchen towel hanging on our oven right now that Jennifer made that says Kelly's Kitchen. It's just beautiful. And they homeschool. They're an amazing family. And they do these crafts festivals. Doesn't mean you have to do a business that does crafts festival. I'm just using that as an example. Starting and building a business is the most important thing you can do to get freedom from a job, a boss, other people who will restrict you from growing. And it's the most important thing you can do to build your long-term wealth and prosperity, and not just for yourself and your immediate family, but for your children and theirs. And it's one of the most exciting things you can do. So, do it. And I can't wait to make the next one on this. I'll wait a couple of days because we're going to get into more things about what kind of businesses, how do you build a business, how do you run a business, what do you have to be careful about, all these things. It's so much fun. If you're just starting out, I envy you because you're going to have a blast and you're going to get something out of it. So think positively, believe in yourself, get ready, and then do it. Okay? Remember, your prosperity is in your hands, and you always have to be preparing for prosperity. And I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.